Hi there, today we're going to be teaching your dog to hold and to drop. So this is to be used when you're doing future tricks, so things like if you want your dog to hold onto its blanket and roll itself up, or if you want them to hold onto something with their mouth and then drop it on command. The drop can also be placed if you want the dog to play fetch, for example, so they can bring the toy to you, drop it, and then you can throw it. I wouldn't teach this if your dog is grabbing something like your slippers and you want them to drop your slippers. That's more of a behavioural problem, and we need to teach them not to get your slippers in the first place rather than to drop them, because remember, every time you talk to your dog you're giving them attention. So if they're grabbing something that they shouldn't and you're chasing them around the room going drop, 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 then they're just getting lots of attention for it. So if you're trying to teach this for your dog because they're grabbing something they shouldn't, it might be worth looking at some trainers in your area, see if they can help you with that. If you want to teach your dog to drop something or to hold something on command for the beginning of another trick, or just as a trick itself, or like I say, for when you're playing with them they can drop the toy, then this is the video for you.
When you first start trying to get your dog to bite onto the toy, you might find that they might be a bit resilient. They might be like, well, you've got treats, why would I want the toy? So the key to this is basically just persistence. So even if you feel like you're annoying your dog, just keep getting the toy, making it interesting, keep playing with them. You're only looking for that moment that they open their mouth. Good boy. So you can see Ziller already knows how to hold, but it's still good to show you the steps as I taught him how to hold. So make sure that every time that mouth opens to get at the toy, you're basically looking for that kind of noise. So as soon as that mouth opens, you click in. Even if they're not even opening it in the direction of the toy, you're trying to reward the moment that they decide, right, I'm going to try and bite on something. So don't be afraid to use noises as well. Get your toy as exciting as you can. And like I say, you're trying to click the moment they open their mouth. Yes, good boy. And it's up to you. I tend to treat to the floor, but you can treat to their mouth if you want to. And you're just waiting for some attention from Zillah. What's that? Yeah, good boy. Yes, good boy. Now he's biting at it quite reliably. I have to move on to the next stage, which is to bite on the actual toy, not just opening up his mouth, but to actually make contact with the toy. So this time, if he opens his mouth and just kind of goes, I'm not going to click him for it, he has to make contact with the toy. This kind of training is really good for your future, different tricks and things like that. If you want to do different toy differentiation as well, so for example, because this toy is supposed to be a lamb, we call it Lammy. This one is a hippo, so we call it Hippo. And this one is a rope and a ball, so we call it Ropey. So you tend to differentiate between toy names anyway, just when you're going, go get Lammy or something like that. But you can actually teach them to differentiate, and the hold is a good way to do that. So you can have 3 toys in a row and say, go get Lammy, and he has to go and pick up and hold the toy that you've asked for. That's a future trick that you can learn, and hold is the first stage for it. So, like I say, next stage he actually has to bite onto the toy itself. Good boy. Oh, sun just came out. Come on in. Good boy. So, I'm going to start making my movements with Lammy to be less and less exciting. So at the moment I'm really kind of jiggling it around. I'm just going to place it in front of him and see if he offers me the bite. Good boy. And again, the clicker is amazing because you can click the decision to do something. So even if it's that movement towards Lammy, I would have clicked for that. Because he moved and opened his mouth, I clicked for that. So now he has to hold on to Lammy just for a second, just put his teeth on Lammy, and then I can click him. Good boy. So you can see that first time, he kind of just nosed him and he looked at me and he's like, is that enough? But I didn't click him, so then he tried to bite. So if you've started to do something, like I started to allow him just to move towards Lammy, but then now I want him to bite. So if you've moved to the next level, unless you're specifically going back a stage, you don't want to click for anything less than what you're at. So because I want him to bite, any movement he makes towards Lammy that isn't a bite won't get anything from me. But if he's really struggling and then I decide it's time to go back a stage because he's not getting it, then I can accept the lower levels again. Good. So he's holding on quite nicely. Now the next stage is to drop Lammy. So as soon as he bites on, I'm going to let go. Now you might find when you practice this, as soon as you let go, Lammy just falls to the floor because they let go as well. If that consistently happens, then you want to try and click the moment you let go. I have to give Ziller a treat because I clicked. And that will help them just to go, oh, you want me to hold on to it. And it's just that motion of you letting go that can make them just let go with you. Good boy. If they do hold it, obviously you can click them. But you're only looking for a second or two. Don't expect them to hold it for 10 seconds when you're first teaching this. Good boy. So now I can start adding on how long he's holding on for. So at the moment he's managing about a second. I'm going to wait and see, can he do 2 seconds? Good boy. Now if you find that when you increase the criteria, basically going up a stage, that say if I tried for 2 seconds and he couldn't do it, I try the next time for 2 seconds, he still can't do it. I'll try generally 3 or 4 times. If they still can't do it, it means you're moving too fast. So go back to doing it for just 1 second, do that for maybe 5 or 6 more times, then try and move up to 2 seconds. And you do that every time they hit like a stumbling block. Like I say, sometimes the first time they're just not too sure what you're after, but the second or third time they'll tend to pick it up. So give them the benefit of the doubt, see if they're going to pick it up. If after 4 times they're still not doing the right thing, go back a stage and encourage them into the right path. So I'm going to try and do 3 seconds. Good boy. Now 3 seconds in the doggy world is quite an important length of time. It's generally what people consider to be not their attention span in those kind of words that we think of attention span, but basically they can be focusing on something and within 3 seconds their mind's on something else. That's why the clicker is so good, because it's an instant noise. So you can say at that exact moment you did something that I like. So it takes the confusion, you can get really complex behaviours from it. But now that Zillah's holding the toy for 3 seconds, I feel like I can add in my cue word or my command, whatever you want to call it. Now the reason I've waited for 3 seconds is I want it to be in his head that hold means, oh, I need to hold on to the toy. Whereas if I try and add in the cue word too early, he might get confused after what the command actually means. So I'm going to place Lammy in front of him. As soon as he opens his mouth to hold on to Lammy, I'm going to say hold. If he holds on to Lammy, I'm going to click. Now you might find that adding in a word, I know you're ready, you might find that adding in a word can make them forget what you're after. So you might say hold and they drop it straight away. So if that happens, you only want to say your command once. So if I say hold and he drops it, just put it back, wait for him to bite and then click for that. Hold. Good boy. Now when you're giving your command as well, you want to be nice and airy, you want to be nice and happy. I tend to say to people, channel your inner Disney princess, because they tend to be quite high voiced and quite like, ah. So if you can get that through your head of everything's happy. I don't want you to be like sit down, hold, because one, you sound more like the Disney villain, but two is you want your relationship to be with your dog nice and positive. You want them to listen to you and respect what you're telling them. If you're shouting at them or being very firm with your voice and your commands, a lot of the time they'll just be like, and whereas if you ask them nicely, a lot of the time they tend to be more like, oh yeah, something good's about to happen, and they're more likely to do what you want them to do. Now, the reason I'm asking for hold as he's doing the behaviour, is that 3-second rule. So if I was to put the toy in front of him at this stage and say hold, but he doesn't actually bite onto it until 5 or 6 seconds after I've said, he's going to forget the association. So he might actually get the association that hold means hesitate and then bite on, whereas I want him to learn that hold means bite on straight away. So if I say my command as he's biting, hold, good boy. If I say my command as he's biting, then he's going to get that association of, oh, this is what hold means. So now I've said it quite a few times, I can see, so if I can say hold and then he bites it within 3 seconds, I can click and treat. If he bites it after 3 seconds, go back a stage of waiting for him to bite first. Hold, good boy. Yes, good boy. Hold, good boy. So now I can go back to asking him to hold. He holds it and then I let go. Hold, good boy. And then again, it's just a case of building up how long you want to hold something for. So if you want to hold it for, say, 5 or 6 seconds, just build up second by second until they can hold reliably for that time. But for now, I'm going to introduce the drop command. Now, a lot of people introduce this a lot earlier than I've done, but I want to get him in his head that hold means I need to hold it and then build up the drop. Whereas a lot of people try and catch the drop behaviour, but I find that makes them pick up the hold a lot slower. Hold. Drop. Good boy. And that's why it's also good to teach the drop now before you build up the hold too much. So I've built it up enough that he knows hold means hold, but not enough that he means hold for 10-20 seconds. So you just say drop or whatever you want your command to be. Some people say release or loose or something. So just say your command nice and happy and then just wait for it. Eventually he's going to let go. As soon as he lets go, click and treat him, and you'll just notice that the time it takes to let go will be shorter and shorter until you can say drop and they'll let go straight away. Hold, drop, good boy. So that time was quicker. Good boy. Hold, drop, good boy. So he's got the hang of drop, but you want to build up the hold as well. So he might get in his head now that hold means hold it for a few seconds and then drop it. So I'm now going to ask him to hold it, and then after maybe 3 or 4 seconds, click him. If he drops it in that time, then I'm just going to give it to him again and just wait for him to hold it. Hold. I was just about to click him and he dropped it, but he's picked it up himself and dropped it and picked it up and dropped it. So he's now getting a bit confused over what exactly I'm after. So I made my time shorter. Instead of waiting for 3 or 4 seconds, I only waited for 2. He was able to hold it for that time, so I clicked him. And now I can say my hold command again. Think of the clicker like a reset button. I've clicked him to say he's completed the task well, so now I can ask him to do another task. Hold. Good boy. So again, he was able to hold it for a bit longer. So the final step, you don't necessarily have to do this step, but I always think it's good to kind of just proof things a little bit. So I'm going to ask him to hold, and then I'm going to say a word that isn't drop. And I'm going to see, does he still hold on because I haven't given him the drop command, or does he get confused and he drops it because he thinks whatever word I've said is the drop command? Hold. Potato. Good boy. So he held on. So I'm going to give him a bit of jackpot, to be honest. So a jackpot is lots of treats and lots of fuss. Now, I'm only giving him a little bit of fuss at the moment, but I tend to suggest when you give a jackpot, really go to town on it. I tend to say to my clients, kind of go bat poop crazy, kind of be like, yeah, because the more energy you put into it, the more he's going to be like, yeah, this is amazing, and he's going to want to do stuff for you. Because Ziller already knows the hold, for me, he's going to have to hold it for a lot longer before he earns another jackpot. When I was first teaching this to him, I was able to give him a proper jackpot when he first was able to hold it, and I would say another word apart from drop. So he was able to hold with the word potato. I'm going to change word and see if he still holds it. Hold. Marcus. Good boy. Oh, yay. Now, when you are giving jackpots, don't be surprised if it excites your dog. Obviously, Ziller, again, he's used to me going a bit crazy and then having to be calm straight away after. So when you're first practicing things like this, if you're like, yeah, oh my God, that's amazing, your dog's going to get excited. They're going to be like, yeah. And you might find that you're going to try and get him to hold and they're going to drop straight away, or they might do something else unwanted. That's fine. Just go back a stage if you need to. So they learn just because something exciting happens doesn't mean they need to lose focus. They can still concentrate. Hold. Drop. Good boy. Yes. So I'm going to add in, because what I was doing before was saying a random word and then clicking him because he didn't drop it, I'm going to ask him to hold, say a random word, and then ask him to drop, and then click him if he drops at the right time. Hold. Jungle. Oh, so we dropped it for jungle. Jungle. Drop. Good boy. Good boy. So because he did drop it on jungle, I didn't ask him to hold again. I just gave it to him. Once he held, I tried to repeat jungle. He held onto it, so I asked for drop. So let's do a different word. Hold. Curtain. Oh, dropped it for curtain. 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 Oops, sorry. So you can see, because he's not too sure what I'm after now, he's trying everything. So he even lifted his paw at one point to try and offer me his paw. So I'm going back a stage, so I'm just clicking him for holding it. Oh, there it is. Just to make him remember what it is that I'm after. And now I'll try and say curtain again. Hold. Curtain. Yay, good boy. That's it, that's a good boy. So now I'm going to say curtain and then drop. But little things like this is good for if you do want to get your hold onto another trick. For example, the one where I said in the introduction where your dog holds onto a blankie and rolls himself up with it. You're going to have to add in the word roll over and things like that when you first train it. And if they're used to hold and then the first word you say is drop, they're instantly going to drop the blanket and then roll over. So it's good to get hold until I say drop, and then you can say and do whatever and they're still just going to hold the item. Hold. Good boy. Curtain. Drop. Yeah, good boy. Good boy. So that's it. And it's a nice and easy thing to teach. I would tend to start with a toy that they like, but you can move on to other objects, like I say, different toys. Again, we've been practicing with a fluffy toy, but the rope toy is going to feel different in his mouth. So I would practice with a variety of toys. You've also got other objects if you want them to hold, like a hat, a cushion, a coat, whatever. Practice with those different items. Don't expect him to go straight from holding onto a toy to holding onto a hat with no fuss. You might find that with a bit of practice, and you're practicing with lots and lots and lots of different items, that you can then just present him with anything and he'll hold it. But in the beginning, he's not going to generalise that hold means hold no matter what's presented. At the moment, he's going to think hold means hold with Lammy, and then you have to broaden his horizons. But a good hold and a good drop are always handy to teach. Even if you don't want to go down the trick route, it's a good way to teach the drop command, even if you don't want to add the hold command. So if you just want to skip the first stages and just put it in his mouth, say drop, and then wait for him to drop it and click, then you can do that as well, just to get a good drop command.